Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pretty Suited Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren A., and this is where we discuss personal development for the modern woman. Happy 2026, everybody. I am happy to be here. I know there's a lot of people who did not make it to 2026, so thank the Lord that I am here with you guys, that you're here with me. I'm a couple of weeks late on this podcast, but you know what? I'm not late. That was intentional. I am not sorry about waiting a whole week and a half to record another episode. And why is that? It's because, like the theme of this episode, we are talking a lot about intentions in 2026. No, we're not talking about New Year's resolutions or anything like that. That's pretty much, just tradition at this point. And studies show that 60% of New Year's resolutions are failed by February. So we're not talking about that, the short term game. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the long term game. And in 2026, I believe just like everybody else that we have goals in mind. I feel like 2026 is going to bring big things for not only myself and Pretty Suited Podcast and all the businesses that I'm trying to, develop from the ground up, but just for everyone who is really serious about their purpose. And so I want to kick things off anew, but I will circle back to 2025, the end of it, the last week of it, where an artist that I love and adore, Doechii, she put out a single titled Girl Get Up featuring SZA. Now, SZA is just a homegirl cousin at this point, right? Like, we all love SZA. She puts out very relatable music that gets you to think about your own transgressions, good or bad, And she also gets you thinking about empowering moments, and this was one of them. The song that she put out with Doechii is called Girl Get Up, and I want to say it was perfect for how I was feeling coming into 2026. And I felt like, girl, get up. Seriously. It wasn't like I was asleep or anything. I didn't feel like 2025 was a waste because they worked me. Okay, I'm tired, and so that song I felt like was a perfect kind of like soundtrack to how I was already feeling about my intentions. The way we were introduced to Doechii came by way of her internet success, her earlier singles, as well as her debut album, Alligator Bites Never Heal. She swept the Grammys, she swept the industry, swept the radio, and just became that girl who was vastly different than a lot of our other female rappers out there who, their content was very sexual or very relatable. She was well known for her eclectic personality, her eclectic type of music videos and lyrical delivery. So almost like a Missy Elliott mixed with Doja Cat. Like, she had so many different flavors mixed together that it was something that we've never seen before. And so a lot of people had something to say about that humongous debut, thinking that she just came from nowhere caused people to talk a lot about her origins and how she got here and how she became so successful. And a lot of them weren't so friendly. There's a lot of YouTubers out there, a lot of streamers out there, podcasters out there, or just pure internet influencers who, made mention of her extreme and sudden growth. But leave it up to Doechii. She's going to tell you that nothing about her growth was extreme or sudden. And so she came to, first she ignored the rumors, ignored the conversation, but it became so big that she just felt like she had to address it. So she addressed it here and there on different podcasts, saying that how hard she did work and, who her influences were, so that she can argue the case that it did not just take a magic wand for her to get to where she is. She earned it. However, some people still wanted to, disbelieve that she just so happened to be that talented. Well, Doechii said enough is enough, and she decided at the end of last year that she was going to put out a single that addressed some of these rumors and critiques, and I think that it was brilliant. her album cover stood out to me the most, I feel, because we came to know Doechii for having a banging bod. I'm talking about body is T, physique is nice, and you could tell she cares a lot about her appearance. You know, she's always moisturized, she's always dressed nice. I'm talking about high fashion, and her hair and her crew's hair was in like this kind of recognizable braid pattern, whether it was straight backs or designs, and had beads at the end. But on the album cover, you see clippings and snippets of the beads and the braids kind of like on the carpet, as to say that she's moving on from that type of style, or maybe that type of appearance or narrative. And in this video, she showcased a more voluptuous look. She had a different hairstyle, giving Diana Ross with the hair, and, you know, really looking more mature. And so that, in a sense, was symbolic of how she's even feeling about the critique. Like, enough is enough. We've been having this same conversation for years and years and years, and you keep bringing my worth down to something that you can't comprehend. And I want to say, shout out to her for not letting the negative influences or narratives or critiques by people who probably never even really heard her music. Because let's be clear, the people with the most critique cannot have possibly listened to that album, which was brilliant, by the way, and still have these same critiques, because the girl is talented. Whether you like rap music or not, whether you like female rapping or not, her talent is undeniable. And I think, unfortunately, as we understand that, you know, negativity breeds likes and clicks and viewership, but to degrade somebody's talent just because you don't necessarily understand how her growth took place is a disservice and is disrespectful to her own journey. One of the lines that she mentioned in that song was, "Life gets dark for a dark chick like me." And that was one of the things I feel like stood out a lot, because as a woman of darker complexion, you know, oftentimes people, we get critiqued for not being soft enough, or not being sweet enough, or just plain out not being good enough for the role or for the position, or for even just, you know, somebody to be adored or admired. Unfortunately, colorism exists in this country, and so oftentimes we felt like we were put to the back burner as a result of people's just ignorance. And so that's another reason why I think she feels that she was discredited so much. It was because of the color of her skin, and how people saw people of darker complexion when it comes to desirability and talent and worth. And so she spoke about these limitations in this song, as well as SZA, because SZA is also a darker complexion woman. And so, you know, both of them spoke a lot about the limitations placed on them, simply because they understand that despite those limitations, they are still successful. And they should be proud of themselves for that success, because they earned it. And we all understand too that yes, there could be some industry plants out there, or even in like the real world, where you may be at a job and there are some people who got to that position through nepotism, or just knowing the boss, or, you know, whatever the case may be, and you don't feel like they deserve that role, or maybe they were underqualified for that role. But in this particular situation, that is not the case. That is not the case. That her talent did not get her to where she needed to be. Could she have made connections? That's fine. Sure. But that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. You know, kind of going back to, you know, one of the Instagram posts that I made about how you want to have foresight and insight. You know, along the journey, you want to make sure that you're not fighting uphill battles for no reason. Right. So if she made connections with TDE, with, you know, Kendrick Lamar or whomever, to get her into the position that she wanted to be in, then that's perfectly fine. That's what you would do if you are the cashier at Wendy's, or that's what you would do if you were an accountant at a firm. You would make connections, you figure out what the role entails, and you execute. Point blank, period. And so I feel like her addressing this wasn't necessarily just like an internet kind of like snapback, which seems to be very prevalent these days. But she wanted to voice her frustration about people are putting her name and slinging her name through the mud. Many of us don't want our reputations to be clouded on just because people can't fathom a talented person doing the right thing, making the right connections, working twice as hard, and actually succeeding. A lot of times, I personally think it's projection. I personally think a lot of times people end up making their false narratives and water cooler conversations about you simply because they can't do it themselves. Right? Or they can't, they desire you, or they, have some kind of affection towards you, and they feel like they can't have you. That's a thing too. And so honestly, I feel like women in general oftentimes get placed in this position as somebody who has to be the bearer of, false narratives and disrespect, just because people can't fathom them being as good and as talented and as deserving as they are. One of my favorite lines in this song is, "I want my things." Going back to the theme of 2026 and about attention, last year was the year of the snake, right? In the Chinese culture. So a lot of that has to deal with shedding beliefs and narratives and personalities and distractions that no longer served you. That was supposed to be a time of you taking an audit of your life and really seeing what deserved to move forward. And I really do feel like in this year, new year of the horse, that is the near the fire horse that's starting, that we have to really say, I'm taking the reins on this thing and steering my life into the direction that I need it to be in. And so for her, she's saying, I want my things is a bold statement to say, I want everything that is coming to me that I work for. And I feel exactly the same way. Do you want your things? Do you want to no longer sit back and just accept what is given to you despite your hard work and despite what you actually deserve, which is more? No, I'm not standing for that in 2025. I want my things. So this makes me laugh because I it's this meme going around. It's this guy on Instagram that I follow every now and then, or his stuff pops up on my page, and he always says, I run a strict program. Like I'm strict. Like if you don't like it, you can go. If you don't want it, you could go. And it's just like, yeah, while that could be extreme or just, used for like entertainment or comedy or whatever, I really do think that, what we also could cultivate in 2026 is our own program. What is your program? Do you run a strict program? I think I'm going to start running a strict program. Like, and what does that even mean? So let me tell you what that means. Running a strict program, to me, I feel like can be incorporated in different parts of your life. Right? A strict program can be, what is your diet? A lot of people are doing dry Januaries. A lot of people are cutting out sweets or whatever kind of fast or religious practices that they're doing right now. That's a fantastic start to what are you going to be consuming this year? Do you need to cut down on the screen time? Do you need to, improve your diet, eat a little bit cleaner? Do you need to cut out alcohol? Do you need to cut out any other kind of vices? If you're a gambler, do you need to cut back on that and make sure your budget is straight? Like, what exactly are you going to be doing to run a strict program so that way you could become more successful? I'm sure you can assume that gone are the days of when you could just do whatever you want to do, spend whatever you want to spend, and watch whatever you want to watch, and whatever the case may be, and still have the willpower to be successful. You just can't do that, right? And so, what exactly is your program? And I really do feel like when you say, I want my things, that comes with, hey, I've set these things in place so that I can hold myself accountable and make sure that I get to where I need to be. If I fall off the program, that's on me to get back up and get back to it. Right? Because we all understand, just like me going to the gym, you might skip a couple sessions, and it's so hard sometimes to get right back on that horse. it's so hard to sometimes just, kind of get into the groove of things and get into that pattern and routine. But having a strict program, I feel like keeps you accountable and keeps you steady. So write that down. What does that mean for you? Does it mean that you need to, say no to a few people? Does it mean that you need to cook a few more nights a week? Does that mean that you need to speak up at that work meeting and let them know that you want to lead the project next time? Yes. Sometimes that means yes. And I feel like as the political world and the economic world is doing its own thing, it's up to us to set ourselves up so that way we won't be so swayed when things get a little tough. And not only is it helpful for just, your finances or your diet or whatever the case may be, it's also helpful for you to build resiliency. Because as things do get shaky, you still have something to fall into or to fall back on, and that's your program. So I would advise everyone this year to figure out what that looks like. I know I'm writing it down. I'm trying to hold myself accountable. I've made a few calls to get other people to hold me accountable so that way that I can say I gave it my best shot. Cuz like she said, somehow I know I'll have everything. With faith, with precision, with structure, with accountability, and with a plan, I feel like I will have my things this year. So check out Doechii's new song, Girl Get Up featuring SZA. It's definitely a good year starter song. It's a good song to remind you who you are. And it's a good song to say, you know what, haters, you can figure out what you need to figure out, tell what you need to tell, say what you need to say. But I'm getting mine, okay? So until next time, you cannot manifest the life you feel like you don't deserve. So create the life that you want and look to the sky for grace. Bye bye.
For all that life has in store.